broadcasting this goes in.
It should work, it's on.
I think.
Oh, I see.
We're live
There
on
we go.
Quarantine at the cell-based
I
meat
think
debate.
folks here probably know that animal agriculture causes more climate change than all forms of transportation combined. So then all of the trains and the planes and the cars and the trucks, animal agriculture is responsible for about 14.5% of climate change. At GFI, we're talking more and more, there we go, about antibiotic-resistant bacteria. According to a report from the UK government a couple of years ago, antibiotic-resistant bacteria is going to kill more people than cancer by 2050. It'll be killing 10 million people a year by 2050. Will be costing the global economy $10 trillion. And then I'm guessing if you didn't see this, that you'll be surprised to hear that all of you who oppose slaughterhouses, it's actually about 47% of Americans also oppose slaughterhouses. Now, the meat industry read about this, and they were absolutely flabbergasted, and they realized it was a group called the Sentience Institute that had released the report, and that's an animal rights think tank, the Sentience Institute. So they picked a researcher at Oklahoma State University, a hand-picked ag researcher at Oklahoma State University, and said, prove these vegans wrong. And he ran the numbers, and he came up with the exact same number. 47% of Americans want to ban slaughterhouses. And yet, when surveys are actually done, what we find is that 98% of Americans continue to eat meat. So we see numbers like 5 or 6% vegetarian, 7% vegetarian, 2% vegan, or whatever. Once Fauna-Lytics actually asked people in the last month, what products have you not eaten? What they determined was that 2 out of 3 vegetarians had eaten fish or chicken in the last month. So not vegetarian. And this is what meat consumption looks like in the United States. And those of you who are attentive to the small animals as opposed to the large animals will also realize that this graph for the United States is similar to the graph globally. So although it looks like meat consumption is skyrocketing on the previous slide, and it looks like meat consumption is fairly stagnant since 1970 on this slide, because chicken consumption has skyrocketed, even as beef consumption has somewhat fallen, the actual number of animals slaughtered has gone up from somewhere on the order of 5 billion animals per year to almost 10 billion animals per year. And in the United States alone, we eat about 100 million pigs, about 40 million cows, and 9 billion chickens. It's literally 250 chickens for every cow, 100 chickens for every pig. 2018, according to the USDA, was the highest per capita meat consumption in U.S. history. USDA says that in 2019, per capita meat consumption is going to be even higher. All that despite the revolution almost 50 years ago. This is the book that turned me vegan in 1987, so I'm going on 32 years of veganism. So the book that started... Thank you. The book that started a revolution in the way that Americans eat. Since that revolution started almost 50 years ago, we are now eating annually about 5 billion additional animals. I wish the revolution had been more successful. 20 years ago this year, I put this video together, Meet Your Meat. It's now been seen by literally millions of people. 10 years ago, I put together the Glass Walls video, which was narrated by Paul McCartney. And I just want to underline again, this is what's happening with meat consumption. Number of animals since 1996, it's about 2 billion additional animals every single year. And globally, we're expected to need 70% more meat by the year 2050. So hopefully people listened to Karen's presentation a moment ago. Nobody paints a picture of what animal suffering looks like better than Karen Davis paints a picture of what animal suffering looks like. But chickens on these farms, as Karen illustrated, every single moment of their lives is categorized by abject misery. Poultry scientists at the University of Arkansas said that if a human baby grew as quickly as a modern broiler chicken, she would weigh more than 600 pounds by the time she was 1 year old. 600 pounds. Every moment of these animals' lives is categorized by unmitigated misery. So we need to be very laser focused on asking the question, if I were a hen in one of these battery cages, if I were a chicken in one of these broiler sheds, what would I want my advocates to be doing and supporting? So Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, is the foremost think tank in Europe. About 3 years ago, they were looking at the climate issue, and they said it is a scientific impossibility that the governments of the world meet their obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement to keep climate change under 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. A scientific impossibility unless animal product consumption goes down. The Chinese government rose to the, yeah, it's good, right? The Chinese government rose to the challenge. In 2015, they said we are going to cut our meat consumption in half by 2030. What do you think's happened to Chinese meat consumption since 2015? Yeah, it's skyrocketing. It's absolutely skyrocketing. It seems to me that what we have been doing for 50 years or 20 years or 10 years or whatever, it's important. We need to change the zeitgeist. We need to educate people. We need to be a voice for animals. And I'm not advocating that anybody change what it is that they're focusing on or what it is that they're working on. But it certainly seems to me that we should be using all the tools in our toolkit. So at GFI, we think this is the tool of choice. Ben & Jerry's vegan ice cream. Who here likes Ben & Jerry's? And the reason you raised your hand is that Ben & Jerry's tastes amazing, right? Nobody thought, nah, it's not healthy. You know, everybody thought it tastes amazing, it's reasonably priced. That's what you were focused on. And in fact, 100% of the world thinks about taste and price when they're thinking about when they're making their dietary choices. Even at Whole Foods, even at the co-op, you look at what people are buying. These are the two dichotomous factors of food choice. If it doesn't taste at least acceptable, nobody's going to eat it. If you can't afford it, you're not going to eat it. And then convenience is also important. If you can't find it, you're not going to eat it. I actually used this slide in Mexico, and everybody just sort of looked at me like, we don't know what this Ben & Jerry's thing is. So the slide didn't go over well, which sort of underlines the idea that no matter how awesome a food is, if you can't find it, you're not going to eat it. So, but how do we apply the Ben & Jerry's trifecta to food? One way we do it is we grow meat directly from cells. Because for the vast majority of people, they think meat tastes great. They're not eating it because they want to see animals slaughtered. 47% of them, all of whom know slaughterhouses are essential to meat, still think slaughterhouses should be banned, remarkably. Nobody is a fan of causing more climate change. Nobody is a fan of factory farms. Nobody is a fan of slaughterhouses. You know, we all have loved ones who continue to eat meat, and they say things like, I don't want to know. You know, where else in your life do you not want to know, right? Where else is there this cognitive dissonance? There's something in human beings. I don't know if it's psychology or physiology or emotion or what, but there's something that causes a lot of people to want to continue to eat meat. And we can grow meat directly from cells. Take a biopsy the size of a sesame seed from a live, living turkey and grow turkey meat in perpetuity for everybody. Seems to me if I'm a turkey on a factory farm, that's something I'm pretty excited about. So this is Memphis Meat's cell-based clean. We call it clean meat oftentimes as a nod to clean energy. Clean energy is energy that's better for the environment. Clean meat is meat that's better for the environment. It's also just literally a cleaner product. That's a meatball. That's clean meat duck. And that's what clean meat will look like at scale. Your friendly neighborhood meat brewery, essentially. I'm going to spare you. Everybody in here knows what a factory farm and a slaughterhouse looks like. Not this pretty. You know, Memphis Meats is planning on streaming their production on the internet. Get boring after about 10 seconds, but it makes, I think, a critical point. So who's excited about clean meat? Ingrid Newkirk is excited about clean meat, the president of PETA. Her Deepness, Sylvia Earle, the foremost living marine biologist, is excited about clean meat for its capacity to save our seas.
Bruce, 2 minutes.
I know, I've got it right here.
Awesome.
GFI had a conference, and at our conference, we had USDA, ADM, Tyson Ventures, DFJ, Kraft Heinz. We had moderators from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Inc. Magazine, Good Morning America. This is something that, an animal rights conference is not going to bring these sorts of thinkers together. I love this quote from Tyson Ventures talking about how awesome he thought our conference was, how excited he was about it. As Hope mentioned, I know that John and Boss are planning to use this against us, but we can have that discussion in the do that at the discussion. Former CEO of Tyson Foods. The last sentence of the cover story about this guy: "We can make meat without the animal. Why wouldn't we?" Former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, very excited about plant-based meat and clean meat, not because he cares about animals, but because he wants to feed the world high-quality protein without the climate impact. Bill Gates, very excited about the capacity to feed hundreds of millions of people in the developing world using clean meat. This is a slide that shows the clean meat investment landscape. So the first clean meat company was incorporated in 2016. Clean meat companies, there are now more than a dozen of them that have raised $1 million or more. And then I'm going to just say a couple of words about what the Good Food Institute does. And wow, 12 minutes goes fast. Oh, but the slide's gone. Derek?
There.
All right, so at the Good Food Institute, we have 4 programmatic departments: science and technology, innovation, corporate engagement, policy, and international engagement. International engagement is a multiplier. So science and technology, we're laying the groundwork for both plant-based meat and cell-based meat. Innovation department is starting companies, among other things. Corporate engagement, we are actually meeting with Tyson and Smithfield and Purdue and other companies. And policy, we are inspiring governments, including the US government, to put money into this space. Animal Charity Evaluators has done an evaluation and ranked us a top charity 3 years in a row. The last thing I want to say is this is not for you. We don't care if you eat it. You're vegan, you're on our side already. It will save massive numbers of animals, or at least has a very good prospect to do so. The bar for the opposition is insanely high. Think about the hens in the cages. And in 100 years, all meat is not even going to be thought of as an animal product any more than insulin is today. 1951, 10,000 pounds of pig pancreas to make a pound of insulin. We'd be having this debate, and somebody would be saying, insulin is an animal product. We absolutely can't go to synthetic insulin. If you want to learn more about GFI, you can find our annual report at gfi.org/2018. You can go to gfi.org to get our bi-weekly newsletter. You can email me if you want our monthly highlights. Thank you.
Oh, we go right, don't they go?
We were gonna do 2, and then, I mean, do you wanna go back?
Oh, I thought we
Or
usually-
Sorry,
usually go
back and forth? Are you good to go? Is that okay? All right, Bossy, you're up. Sorry, we should have, I thought we had this.
No problem.
It's up to you, the podium one works if you wanna stay at the podium. Which one is yours? That's right.
Sorry, low tech.
Bossy, nice, Dennis.
Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, great. I came here today to bring you 3 simple truths about in vitro meat. Simple truth number 1, in vitro meat harms the planet. Proponents of in vitro meat like to claim that it will help the planet. However, what they fail to mention is that the only peer-reviewed study, positive peer-reviewed study, was both commissioned and funded exclusively by the in vitro meat industry, was published by a graduate student, and was based solely on a series of possible future thought experiments, assumptions which are premised on a series of technologies which currently do not exist and are unlikely to exist in the future. To provide one example among many, the study assumed that all in vitro meat would be grown exclusively in cyanobacteria hydrostate, a type of algae, even though no in vitro meat is currently cultured in this process, and there is no current research proving that it would be possible to do so in the future. Unsurprisingly, I have not been able to locate a single other peer-reviewed study that has duplicated these findings. In fact, later research has found that in vitro meat may be more harmful in terms of climate change than even traditional animal agriculture. As one recent study concluded, cultivation of in vitro meat requires more industrial energy, often produced by burning fossil fuels, than pork, poultry, and maybe even beef. The reason for these counterintuitive results is that while cultured meat uses less land, it requires more energy inputs, i.e. fossil fuels, than even factory farms. As a thoughtful article in The Atlantic explained, cell culture is the most expensive and most resource-intensive technique in modern biology. Keeping the cells warm, healthy, well-fed, and free of contamination takes incredible labor and energy, even when scaled to the 10,000-liter vats the biotech companies use. And on top of that, the fact that these three-dimensional wads of meat would have to be exercised regularly with stretching machinery, essentially elaborate meat gyms, and you begin to understand the incredible challenges of scaling in vitro meat. As Marco Springman, a postgraduate researcher at Oxford University, phrased the same critique, although the technologies are evolving, there is no indication that lab-grown meat is significantly better for the environment and health than existing alternatives to beef. The latest reviews have put the emissions of lab-grown meat at several times